Good morning. I told myself not to start the show with good morning because it's not the morning show. My goodness. What a day. What a day. Let me fix that right there. Good evening and welcome to American Scholar TV's Fantasy Premier League show. I am your lone host today as Mr. Galley is taking care of some puppy problems. So we hope the pup has a speedy recovery. Everything seems okay. Just needs a little bit of needs some some care, and that is all. But yes, so you guys are stuck with me today, and I'm not going to make this too long of a show because, frankly, you don't want to hear too much of what I have to say by myself. Because if you've paid attention at all this year, you've known that I am not quite at the heights of what Galley is, and so unfortunately, you're kind of stuck with second fiddle. But needless to say, thank you guys always for tuning in and joining. If you have any specific questions, if you have any teams you want us or you want me to take a look at, please let me know. Send in your comments, whatever the case might be. Also, if you haven't had a chance yet, like, comment, or see, I'm so out of practice. Make sure you head on over to YouTube, subscribe, and we also have Patreon as well. If you're not a member yet, please go on over there and give us a little follow as well. If you'd like to donate $1 a day for the Gordo Lee Cheapskate package, it's not a day. It's $1 a month. $1 a day actually would be $30 a month, and that's a lot more than we want you to pay. And my God, we're at a cracking start to the show. So I'm going to take a moment, take a breath, take a sip of water or flavored water, whatever the case might be, and we will begin for real this time. So, fantasy. What a interesting week we had. Now, let me let me do this now that I wasn't. I was extra prepared here. Oh boy, this never ends well when I'm by myself. Let's throw this up here. Let's take a look here. This is the team of the week from last week. This is where we're going to start. We got Henderson in goal. That hurts to see if you're a Liverpool fan. You got Schär, Mitchell, Dean, Gvardiol, Palmer, Gordon, Doku, Andres Pereira, Bruno Fernandes, and Nicholas Jackson up front. Obviously, some big hitters in there with Palmer scoring 26 points. Huge week for him. 4 goals. Could have been 3 if either Jackson or, oh my goodness, can't even remember his name. The children that were fighting over the penalty, if either one of them had it go their way instead, Madueke, then Palmer might have just only had a hat trick. But my goodness, has he been on a roll? You look at Palmer, you look at what price he started out at, and then you take a look at 26, 5, 20, 15, 13, 5, 2, 10, 8, 2, 10, 18. It's probably one of the best outputs of fantasy in the last 5 to 6 years, easily at his price. Obviously, Holland last year was a monster, right? But when you factor in the price and the points per price, it has been incredible to see what Cole Palmer has been able to do on a lowly Chelsea side, which is really causing a lot of people to kind of sit back and really try and determine what they want to do this week, because the core idea for many, the template idea, so to speak, was to throw the triple captain on someone like Mo Salah, who has a double game week this week. But it's tough to see right now, especially after today, where will those goals come from open play? Will they come from open play, right? So if you're just stuck on Salah and needing him to get penalties, that's not always the best route to go when you're triple captaining. A goal is a goal at the end of the day, so you'll take it however you can. But with Liverpool's lack of scoring from open play, it's really throwing in a wrench in some people's plans for this week. And now you can take a look and you can say, arguably, yeah, sure, Fulham, they should be able to score against Fulham. And they should be able to score also against who else are they playing? I'm sorry, I had this up here, and Everton, of course. Sorry, Everton and Fulham. So you would think that he's going to score goals there, but it just doesn't look great at the moment. So looking at the rest of the team of the week, this is a team that you could field. Sometimes some of the weeks you can't field the teams because they have 4 players from the same team or whatnot, and the rules state you can only have 3 from the same team. Do I expect such a big haul from the rest of the players anytime this week, anytime for the rest of the year? Probably not. I don't expect to see Doku up there. I don't expect to see Andres Pereira up there. Bruno Fernandes, slight shout. Luka Dean, most likely not. Mitchell, most likely not. Shar, most likely not. Gvardiol, you could make a case for seeing him up there, whether it's having another opportunity to clean sheet or another opportunity at goal. He is one of the few City defenders that has an actual opportunity to score week in and week out. It feels like obviously he had that beauty of a goal against Real Madrid, and then he had a late goal against Luton Town this past week. So that's what we're looking at there. In terms of heading on over to our American Scouser League, let me blow this up a little bit so we can get a closer look. This is where the standing lies right now. Johnny Mac Reds, atop of the Fantasy League. Sir Z joining us this evening. Good evening, Sir Z. Thanks for joining us. Johnny Mac Reds still atop. Toss my Salah in second there. How things could have changed if he had captained Cole Palmer instead of Erling Haaland. But of course, I think we all wish we would have captained Cole Palmer this past week, myself included. Unfortunately, we'll see later how that did not go to plan. Ivan Toney hat-trick this week. I don't know. I don't know where to go with that, to be honest. I wouldn't expect it. Brentford, obviously, have got Luton. So there is a chance there, obviously, when it comes to the fixture. There is always an opportunity, but I don't see Brentford scoring that many goals. I don't know. I could be wrong. They haven't looked great. We thought that when Ivan Toney came back that they would be a better team overall. We thought they would have some more returns in them, and it just hasn't really worked out that way, unfortunately. Moving up 2 spots into third, you have Inus, and then unused substitute there in the top 4. So is he worth a bet? I do like to take a bet every once in a while. I don't know if Ivan Toney is going to take the same bets anymore. Interestingly enough, though, this little sidetrack here, anyone here in stateside seeing the NBA news recently of a player called Jonte Porter, who has actually been banned from the NBA for life for betting, essentially betting against himself, right? He was using betting information, not using, he was giving out information to friends and also betting on himself to get unders on different, whether it be his points or rebounds or assists or whatever the case might be, and making money that way. Just a stupid way to pretty much derail your entire career and life at that point. So in comparison to what Ivan Toney's punishment was, Ivan Toney got off pretty light, considering all things considered. Rounding out the top 5, we have Alice in Wonderland, who was first for a while, I'm pretty sure, and has dropped off a little bit, but still top 51,000 overall, which is really impressive. The top player in our American Scouser League is in the top 30,000 of the entire game, which is a very impressive thing. I would be remiss to mention, look at this here. We have the Galvin household back-to-back in 6th and 7th. Galley has slowly been rising and rising and rising. Green arrow after green arrow. He is in the top 120,000. And I know he is going after the other Galvin in the household. And almost 60,000, 63,000 spots separate the two there. 21 points is the amount there between the two, which is really, really interesting. It looks like Galley had a Muniz to Mateta transfer this past week, and Kelly went with Turner to Onana, interestingly enough. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. But to round out our top 10 in our league, we've got King of the Klopp, Pitbull, Klops and Robbers, and Klopptoberfest. A lot of these names are going to have to change next year because a certain Jurgen Klopp will no longer be the manager of Liverpool, obviously. So we will not see as many Klopp names. Or maybe we still will. We don't know. I'm just scrolling down now just to see where my name ends up being. There we go. 35th in the league, which, could be worse. There definitely was a much better time, but there have been worse times. So there we are. I did have Tony as my vice captain, in which I did transfer out Tony for Watkins. That did not work out, obviously, as Watkins scored against Arsenal and Tony did not even play. So then it was actually my captain, and then Mo was my vice captain. So by not playing, it automatically switched Salah over to my captain, and he blanked as well. So there wasn't much to gain from there. So that is a look over at our American Scouser league table overall. I do think that the American Scouser Cup is ongoing as well. I don't quite see. I guess I could go in here and take a look and pull that up really quick. I lost in the American Scouser Cup, so I don't even know. I would have to go and try and find it. So I'm not going to waste time doing that, you guys. And instead, I'm just going to get into the meat of it here. And let's take a look. Gally and I like to go over the top transfers of the week and the top transfers out of the week. So on the left side here, we see the likes of Anthony Gordon, Bukayo Saka, Eberechi Eze, Luis Diaz, Mateusz Cunha rounding out the top 5 in the transfers in. And transfers out, we've got Heung-min Son, Jared Bowen, Pedro Porro, Phil Foden, and Connor Bradley. So on the ins, what we see here, a lot of midfielders, right? 4 of the top 5 are midfielders. There's a big focus on the double game week coming up. And when you take a look at a player like Luis Diaz, who's going to have a double, you take a look at Eze, who's going to have a double, take a look at Saka, who's going to have a double So let's go over the doubles here. Luis Diaz, double against Everton and Fulham. Eze's got a double against Newcastle and West Ham. Saka's got a double against Chelsea and Wolves. And Anthony Gordon has not a double, but just a pretty decent fixture against Crystal Palace, but then has a double in 37 against Manchester United and Brighton. So that could be kind of a long-term play. Mateusz Cunha there at the bottom. Wolves does not have – they do have a double, against Bournemouth and Arsenal. So lots of doublers there. The guys going out like Son and Pedro Porro, Spurs do not have a fixture this week. So that makes sense that a lot of them are not going to be in players' teams because they want to make sure that they have as much opportunity to score as many points as possible. So in terms of Son and Pedro Porro, we're probably seeing the likes of Gordon, Saka, Eze, or Luis Diaz replacing Son. And not sure where they're going defensively, some of these players. I would imagine that it might be like a Ryan Aït-Nouri from Wolves just because of the double there and the amount of points. I wonder if I go in here. Fabian Schär there is the highest defender being transferred in. And you don't have to go all the way down to Ben White to get the next highest transferred in. Ben White also on a double. So I guess that sort of kind of gives you an idea of where people are lying to. Connor Bradley, obviously on the outside injury, he's going to be out 3 weeks at least. So lots of players had him in as a cheap Liverpool option that didn't quite work out. Phil Foden has been the Pep Roulette. He has been the victim of Pep Roulette. And obviously, I think there's a little bit more that's going on there that we know. I think there's a little bit of a knock, maybe a little bit of a niggle here and there. He played in the Champions League last week, didn't play this past week. And so not really sure what to expect with him moving forward. Obviously, the fixtures are pretty good. They have Brighton away, Forest away, Wolves at home, Fulham away, Spurs away, which probably is their toughest, and then West Ham at home. So in that, in those 6 games, you could see 4 or 5 returns for Phil Foden if he plays. The problem is, does he play? And with him costing as much as he does, he's at 8.2, right? So you can bring in a Gordon, you can bring in an Eze, you can bring in a Luis Diaz, who are going to be guaranteed minutes at that spot, whereas you don't know what you're going to get with Phil Foden. And it's a difficult thing to do when you don't know what you're going to get. The last one, Jared Bowen here. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure if he played today in the Europa League. I could double check that right now. I am going to double check that right now as I speak. I'm going to make this as seamless as possible so you can't even tell that I checked it. But since I already told you, Yeah, Jared Bowen played all 90 today. So maybe he picked up a little bit of knock in Europa, and that's why he's flagged. But he's at 75% hip injury, 75% chance of playing, so he should be good. He should be fine to go. Let's take a look now at some fixtures. Let me pop this over here and share this instead. Zoom in on this so you guys can take a look as So this is the rest of the year right here from game week 34 to game week 38. So let's talk about what you're thinking of doing, what you can do in these moments. And really, it depends on which chips you have, right? Do you still have a bench boost left? Do you still have a triple captain left? Do you happen to still have a free hit? All these things are really going to play into how you're going to attack these next couple of weeks. 34 this upcoming week, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are on doubles, right? You've got Wolves, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Sheffield, Everton, Crystal Palace, all on doubles here. Now, realistically, how many players from each of those teams are you going to look to have? Wolves, you might look to maybe have 2. I would look at a Cunha. I would look maybe at a Huang, maybe at a Sarabia, maybe at an Nate Nuri. Those guys could be decent players to have there. Looking at Liverpool, I don't fucking know, you guys. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what to do with Liverpool. They can't score. They're having a tough time defending. And there's a lot of money you need to invest in those forwards if you're going to want any sort of output that is justifiable transferring in, right? Because that's the name of the game is does this player score points and does this player's price tag justify having them as opposed to having another player? Arsenal, I think, they are struggling a little bit recently. They didn't score against Villa. They didn't score against Bayern Munich. They've been struggling a bit. However, playing Chelsea and Wolves, I feel like both of those games are going to be pretty open. I think there's going to be some opportunities there. I don't know if defensively, if that's going to be what I would want to invest in. I know Gabriel is a good, having one, right? Whether it's Gabriel, whether it's Ben White, there's going to be a good defender to have. It just depends on which one you want to go with. And if you're me, oftentimes it's the wrong one. Bournemouth, you could look at a Solanke. He's been scoring a lot of points. I do regret transferring out. Outside of Solanke, maybe a Kluivert could be a good differential shout. If you have a bench boost, this Bournemouth team could be one to look at because having Wolves and Villa, I do expect there to be goals in both of those games. So I think if you're having that struggle with who you want up top as your forwards, I think having someone like Dominic Solanke could be a good shout to go for in that regard. Sheffield United, I would probably stay away from the Brereton Diaz train. I know it's a popular train. I feel like it has left the station, though, and there isn't much juice left in that to squeeze. Yeah. I don't know how we got from trains to fruit squeezing, but if you can understand that analogy for what it is in the way that I said it, then I think you know what I mean. I don't think he's going to score for the rest of the year. I just don't. And so I don't know if it's going to be enough to really warrant a transfer because I know that he's cheap and I know he's a cheap differential, but I think there are a lot of good forwards in that $6.5 to $8.5 dollar range where you don't have to go down and downgrade to a Brereton Diaz just for the sake of having him. Everton with Liverpool and Forest. Not necessarily the best attacking fixtures. Defensively, might be interesting. I know Everton's had a couple injury problems, though. Jared Braithwaite had to go off early in the past week, so I wonder what that's going to look like for Everton. We'll have to take a look. We'll have to see. And then Crystal Palace having Newcastle and West Ham. Those two fixtures might line up pretty nicely for someone like Eze, for someone like Olise, for someone like Mateta. I think there is a good play there. It's hard to really know which eggs you want to put in which basket, because I do feel like all three of those guys are a good threat and are a good player to have, but I don't particularly see one outscoring more than the others. I think they're all going to be in that same sort of range. So really, depending on the setup of your team, whichever one works the best and whoever you have room for, probably going to be the best way to go. Looking past 34, 37 is going to be the next big one. I think and I talked about this before, with Liverpool struggling as much as they are, and fantasy players kind of a bit gun shy to put that triple captain armband on Mo. I think 37 is a very good sneaky triple captain shout for Cole Palmer. Having Brighton and Forest, I think those are two great open fixtures potentially for Cole Palmer. He could have 4 or 5 returns between both of those games, in my opinion. So I think if you have 2 chips left, you really have to take a look at how your team is set up right now, and really kind of find out which part or which week you really want to designate to target, and to really go hard for those weeks, because you're going to have to set up your team in a way where you can get, let's say, 37, right? You have to be able to use the 3 weeks in between here to get to, or the 2 weeks in between to get to 37. And so just kind of take a look at your team overall, see where the holes are that you might be struggling with, and then kind of take a look to see, is it worth using chip A this week or chip B this week? I know it's not the best advice in the world, because it's a bit, ambiguous, but everyone's team is so different that it's hard to say which strategy is the best strategy to go with. So, now that I say that, Mo might bang in 4 goals total against Everton. Fulham might have maybe 2 goals and 2 assists. Who knows? As Liverpool fans, we hope to see that, but it's hard to picture that right now, given what's been going on at the club. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at with that. Let's take a look at our teams from last week. I'm going to get this on the screen here. That's my big old ugly mug on the screen now. And that's not what I wanted to do either. Sorry, guys. This is on the fly, if you will. Okie dokie. Oh, I don't know if you can see that well. Let's zoom in a little bit. So this is Galley's team from last week. And like we talked about, he subbed out Muniz and subbed in Mateta, who was auto-subbed in after Foden had a stint on didn't have a stint in the game at all. So looking at what Galley did, there wasn't anything that he could have done better besides captaining Cole Palmer. But that's going to go for pretty much, 98% of players that didn't captain Cole Palmer. Not playing Jared Branthwaite was a good thing. Finishing with a -1. Tough day at the office. Erling Haaland had a 10 with the armband. That's 20. Solanke with 7. And then Gusto with highest scoring defender. You wouldn't expect that, given Virgil and Gabriel being back there as well. And then David Raya with 1. Pickford with 0 on the bench. I'm not sure which direction Galley is planning on going. I know sometimes we talk about it on Discord when we message each other. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where he wants to go. I know he still has 2 chips left, so I'm thinking he's probably going to bench boost this week, or he might be saving it for 37. I wish I knew, but I don't. So unfortunately, that's where we're at with that. So that's where Galley's team is at. Now, looking at my team from last week, let's share that instead. Boom, boom, boom. Whoa, that's weird. There's 2. Ah. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Sorry, friends. If anyone is still here, thank you, first and foremost. Secondly, this usually goes a lot smoother because Gally is driving the entire time, and I'm just a good passenger. Okay. I think I mentioned it earlier. My transfer this past week, I was going to not transfer at all and to save a transfer, and then I was like, oh no, I should definitely do something. Weird, undefined down there. And so my transfer was Ivan Toney in, Ollie Watkins out. Obviously, Watkins scored. Toney did not play, and he was my captain. So then the armband went to my vice captain, which was Mo, which I really, really hate myself for doing because I did want to throw the vice captaincy on Cole Palmer. That would have done a huge boost for me. It would have put me up quite a few places, but unfortunately, that's just I made the decision at the time with what I wanted to do, and I don't regret that specifically because I made the best decision at the time, but it just kind of sucks looking back, knowing that it could have been much better. My star was Yasko Gvardiol with 12 points there. Obviously, City lost that clean sheet, but with the goal, he was able to get the 12-pointer. And Eze with 10 points, also one of my stars, and Bern Leno. So overall, I mean, had a pretty decent week. Didn't score enough to get out of to hit the safety, if you will, to move up at all. So I did drop down 48,000 spots, just outside of the 750,000, the top 750,000. So the goal is hopefully this upcoming week to pop back into the top 750,000 and hopefully stay there for the rest of the year. As far as my chips go, I've got a bench boost left. I've got a triple captain left. I think I've pretty much talked myself into triple captaining Cole Palmer in 37 and using the bench boost this week. The one downside to that is that I need to make 2 transfers this week to make the bench boost really count. And that would mean taking a -4 and getting off of Son and Pedro Porro. So I think that's the tough part that I'm trying to deal with is how much of a hit do I want to take for this bench boost. And I'm going to take a look into it and see kind of what makes the most sense. But that's pretty much all we've got. I know this wasn't the best show in the world. I appreciate anyone who's been watching. Serzi, thank you for chiming in. Appreciate that as always. For anyone who is new to American Scouser, we do fantasy football content every Thursday. Myself and Gally. Gally's the he's the guy that you want to listen to most of the time. He's in the top 130,000. He's doing so well. But for myself, I'm just glad to be part of the game and kind of have fun while doing it. Right. I kind of talked about how earlier in the year I was never going to have Holland on my team, and I meant that. And I've been kind of really glad to play without Holland because it opens up the fun so much and allows me to really build teams that I wouldn't be able to build if I didn't have the Holland money to play with. So, but thank you guys for joining. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. If you are playing fantasy, I hope all your transfers hit. I hope you score 1,000 points, and I hope you overtake all of us in the standings. But thanks again for joining, and we will see you next time.